Hello friends, it's Erin here, and I'm so excited to be setting up for December with my brand new Cricut Explore 3. Huge thanks to the folks at Cricut for sending me this glorious machine and materials that I'm going to be using in this video. I'll show you how I like to use my Cricut with my bullet journal, and if you don't have a Cricut, don't worry, there's still something for you in this video too. The first thing you want to do is measure your journal so you know what kind of space you have to work with at the absolute extremes, and I also recommend that you measure some of your favorite stickers that you've used in the past too that you thought were a good size, so you know kind of what sizes to make your own elements when you're cutting them for your journal. Next, we're going to jump into Design Space. I have the link to my project in the video description, so you don't have to do all of this stuff. You can just cut from my project, but in case you'd like to do anything similar for yourself, I'm going to be cutting the heading for my December cover page, as well as headings for all of my regularly used pages for my journal as well, and also some decorative elements that are going to really bring out the gingerbread theme, which is what we're going for here for this December setup for 2022. All of the fonts and images I'm using for this project are available within Cricut Design Space or Cricut Access, so you can also find all of these for your own projects if you'd like to. And if you do use my project to recreate this or adapt it for your own bullet journal, please tag me. I'd really like to see. I am at erinsmith.art on Instagram. I'm just making sure to size all of my headers here so that they are approximately the right size to fit on the page. I've worked out that I want them to be around about 5 centimeters wide and probably only 1.5 centimeters tall, and I'm going to cut these out of red vinyl later on so that we'll have this beautiful, cohesive, very polished look across all of the headers throughout this whole theme. And I'm going to be using a few different vinyl colors, so I'm setting my material colors to red within Design Space to tell the Cricut that I want to cut all of these from the same material. And setting them to red when I'm going to cut them from red vinyl just really helps me to visualize that and how it will all come together. Here I'm adding Merry and Bright in the beautiful Tango font, which I think is my favorite, and I'm actually going to cut the Merry in gold, so I've changed the color of it to represent that, to tell the Cricut that I'm going to be cutting that from a different material. And I wanted something pretty to sit on the top and bottom, so Merry and Bright is going to be my quote page on the left side, and I thought these pretty filigree frame kind of top and bottom parts could be really nice here, so I've grabbed those. You can see there's 3 different layers of these filigree borders on the right side here. I only need 2, so I'm just working out which ones I want to keep, and I'm going to get rid of the extra one. And I'm actually going to cut these out of silver, so I'll change the material color for this one again to tell the Cricut that I'm going to cut these out of a different vinyl again. Being able to visually lay everything out like this really helps me to envision how it's all going to look on the page and give me an idea of where I need to line things up as well once I've got that vinyl in my hands and not on the screen anymore, so I can see that the center of the top filigree needs to go sort of almost in the middle of the E, not quite. And I'm going to resize the whole thing to make sure that it's all going to fit on my page. Now that I've discovered that beautiful Tango font, I want that for my December lettering as well, so I'm just going to change that over so that everything can be nice and consistent and pretty. And since this is a Christmassy December layout, I'm just going to quickly have a look through the Christmas items and add something else in here just so that we're being a bit more efficient, you know? So I picked these sweet little candy canes. I actually didn't end up using these just yet. I still have them, so I might use them in my weeklies that I haven't set up yet for December. But I just wanted to have them on hand so that when I needed a little pop or something, I had them ready to go and I didn't have to jump back into Design Space and set up a whole new cut. Now it's time to load my vinyl into my Cricut. I'm starting with the silver, and it's going to go ahead and cut this beautiful filigree out of the Smart material. I don't need a mat because I'm using Cricut Smart materials, which is a wonderful advantage of the Explore 3. And it also cuts up to twice as fast as the Explore Air 2 when you're using Smart materials, so it is a very speedy process. This is actually it cutting in real time. And now we'll go back to sped up footage, but I hope you enjoyed that. If you're an avid Cricut user, you might notice that within Design Space, it's asking me to select my materials. That's because the Explore 3 has done away with the materials dial. It's all done within Design Space now to give you an even more accurate and precise cut. And of course, no need for USB cables. You can send your project to your Cricut straight from your device or your computer over Bluetooth. So we've cut all of the headings and all of the elements for my quote page that you saw earlier. Now I'm just doing some extra little decorative bits. I'm going to cut these gingerbread houses and gingerbread men out of the gold vinyl. Again, just to have some cute little small accents that I can have around the functional parts of my bullet journal. So I'm cutting those out here. And my cover page is going to have this beautiful big white gingerbread house, which I'm going to be cutting out of white vinyl. I think the way I've done this is pretty cute. You can get a really good gingerbread effect very easily if you do this. And once again, I'm just going to cut some little white gingerbread men at the same time, so everything's all nice and streamlined. Here we are cutting the white vinyl pieces. And then we're going to jump into my journal and start bringing it all together. Starting with my quote page on the left side, I've gone with Merry and Bright, which I think is a pretty common Christmas thing to see lettered around. I think it's appropriate for us here in Australia because obviously we have summer Christmas and it is very bright outside. So it's my little nod to the Aussie summer Christmas without kind of straying away from the classics too much. I'm cutting a piece of transfer tape. I'm deliberately using transfer tape that I have used for a few projects before this. And I find that's the best way to use the transfer tape with the paper in your bullet journal. Don't go in there with brand new, never before used transfer tape because it will stick to the page and tear up the page a little bit. So you want it to be a little bit less sticky. I'll show you a little hack for that if you don't have any used transfer tape on hand, but I do love that this stuff is reusable, and actually I found that the more you use the same piece over and over again for your journal, the better it gets. I think peeling off the transfer tape is the most satisfying part, and I'm just going to weed out the edges around Bright here. So this one was done in red for that nice contrast between the gold and the red, and then the silver for the filigree top and bottom. It's just coming together. So this is a new piece of transfer tape, and I'm actually sticking it to the fabric on my table here a few times and peeling it back up, sticking it down and peeling it back up. It's picking up some of the pile from the fabric, and that's actually exactly what I want because that's going to make it less sticky than it was a minute ago. And I cut everything out and I wrote what it is on the back with Sharpie so that I could see without having to hold it up to the light and shine it around. I'm 35, so I need glasses for stuff like that. So that way it just made it easier for me to see which pieces were what. We've given it a good burnish front and back, and we're peeling it off the transfer tape, and then we're gonna line it up just right with the Merry based on where we lined everything up within Design Space earlier. Burnish that down as well, and then we can add the filigree. If you're using your Cricut Explore 3 for bullet journaling purposes like me, you may never need this feature, but just so you know, it can also cut up to 3.65 meters in one go, which is just absolutely wild. It can also write and draw with Cricut markers, and it can score so that you always have perfect folds in your papercraft projects as well. So there's so much that you can do with it. I already have some plans for DIYing some Christmas baubles for my Christmas tree that are personalized to me and my partner and our cat. So let me know if that's something you'd want to see. Something that was a really pleasant surprise for me when I opened up my Cricut, I was a little bit intimidated by it and the learning curve seemed really steep, but it actually comes with samples of the smart materials and a little tutorial to guide you through learning how to use Design Space and how to use all of the materials. So it's actually not that intimidating, and now that I've done that tutorial, I'm pumped. I'm like, let's go. I can make all sorts of stuff now. I did find that the burnishing transfer tape transfer onto surface process took a little bit of practice to kind of get the angles right and that sort of thing, but with practice and over time, I've gotten the hang of it. We're going to pause on the quote page for now and move over to the cover page, which is our big gingerbread extravaganza, and my plan here is to use the white vinyl that I've cut with my Cricut, kind of like the icing on the gingerbread cookie. So I'm cutting around the outside of the backing here to give me this general shape of the gingerbread house, and I'm going to use this as a template with a brown paint pen. This one is from Artistro. It's one of their matte ones from the brush tip paint marker collection. I used it back in my August setup and I immediately was like, this is the color of gingerbread, and it put the idea for this in my head and I've been thinking about it ever since then. So I've traced the outside there to give me the outline of my cookie, and then I'm just gonna fill it in. This takes a little while and the brush tip on this pen makes the angle a little bit tricky. You kind of have to keep rotating the brush as you're using it so that you're evenly using the ink from all across the brush tip. And of course, you don't have to use a paint pen for this necessarily. I just had the right color already, but if you have a brown Tombow or some other kind of marker, then that could work really well too. Just as long as it's not an alcohol marker, you're good to go. I'm going to need to cut a new piece of transfer tape for this big gingerbread piece, so I'm just gonna use my template to work out how much I need here, and then just like earlier, stick it down to the back of my journal, stick it to my table cover, all sorts of stuff like that, just to get some of that stickiness off, because the more sticky it is, the more likely it is to tear up your journal page, and we don't want that. I also just wanted to mention that I have gone through some of the smaller decorative elements and already pre-weeded out all of the little parts off camera, just because it's such a time-consuming process and I didn't want to have to edit all of that footage. Okay, it's time to put our white vinyl in place and burnish it down. See how that gingerbread has come together? I was getting a bit worried about the paint pen looking really streaky, but as soon as you put this down, it's just so obvious what's going on here, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Funnily enough, I have never made nor eaten a gingerbread house, but given this is my setup for December, maybe I'll have to. So just weeding my December header here as well, sticking that down to some transfer tape, burnishing, peeling it off, and we're gonna add that at the bottom. Now you could leave this here, but of course I'm not going to. I'm gonna get in with one of my little gingerbread men here that I cut out at the same time as my Mary. I have all of those elements in the one project on Design Space, but I hadn't decided at the time I set all of this up how many of them I wanted to use, so I've consolidated everything later so you don't have to save multiple projects. And I'm using the exact same method with the brown paint pen as we did for the gingerbread house for a little gingerbread man over on the left side here. Isn't he cute? At this point, I was really feeling like I needed some green represented in here, so I've grabbed out some of my brand new Christmas washi tapes from the Washi tape shop. The one I'm using here is from the Winter Wonderland set. Absolutely gorgeous Christmas stuff. And I'm just using those to bring a little bit more softness and a little bit more green into the theme, and I love how it's all coming together. And just on the left page there, the quote page, I'm also going to use a green Tombow. This is the 277, to add a little border, just hand-drawn, not too straight, not too perfect, around the left page just to tie it all together. We're going to turn the page and we're going to move on to my calendar spread. Now, not everyone has a Cricut, I understand, so this page I'm going to show you how you can still get a similar effect to my brown and white layered gingerbread look without needing a cutting machine of any kind. All you'll need is the brown marker and also a white paint pen. And it's going to have to be a paint pen this time for the white one because it needs to be opaque enough to stand out over a darker color. So I recommend the one from Peter Pauper Press. That's what I'm going to use. But the Uni Poscas or whatever other white paint pen you have, just give it a little test run in the back of your book before you commit it to the page. I've ruled out my December boxes here. They are 5 spaces by 5 spaces with a little extra gap at the top for the name of the day of the week. And I'm using the brown paint marker again to go around the outside and just a little bit thicker, sort of the width of 2 strokes of the paint marker, so that it sort of looks like a gingerbread cookie. I've given it a double pitched roof because that just felt like the most appropriate thing to do with this kind of split level calendar here, and coloring it all in. Paint marker again to color it in much the same way that you might decorate a cookie with some white icing from a piping bag. So I'm starting with some snow on the top. As I mentioned before, I've never actually made a gingerbread house, so I was kind of going from reference photos and from the Cricut designs that I used for the previous page and the tiny ones that I cut earlier as well. Seems like just lots of wavy lines and circles is the way to go, and I'm sure people decorate their gingerbread houses and their gingerbread cookies with some colourful things as well, so if you have other paint markers and you want to introduce some different colours here, this would be a great opportunity to do so. I wanted mine to stay all white, so just the brown Artistro marker and the white Peter Pauper Press marker were all I needed for this one. And if I do say so myself, I think it's really, really cute. I'm also going to fill in that extra gap down the bottom where there isn't a day, just so that something's happening there. I'm switching back to my green Tombow. This one has dried out a bit and I have to soak it in water to make it work, so I'm trying to use it sparingly in this setup. And the red Tombow as well, 855. Just to add a little circle in the top left corner of each box so I can put the number for each day of the week on there. And I actually messed up my numbers as I was going. Somehow I added the 21st twice. I don't recommend that you do that, but I just colored over the paint marker with my red pen again and fixed it up. It took me a second, but we fixed it, we worked it out. It's all good. Now that the calendar is all laid out and also decorated, I'm just going to use the Winter Wonderland washi tape sticker set again to decorate around the sides of the page. I love that these kind of look like gingerbread houses anyway. Of course, I had to have some of my Cricut elements on the page as well, so I'm taking this little gingerbread man. He's gold, he's very low effort. You don't actually get to see me stick him down because my camera cut out and I didn't realize, I'm very sorry. But we're gonna move on to the next page anyway, which is for goals, musings, and currently. I'm setting this up the same way I did for November, but the decoration is going to make it look very different. So I'll be using the headings that I cut out of the red vinyl with the Cricut earlier. I really stress measuring the spaces where you plan to put things because the currently ends up being a little bit wider than the space I'd like to put it in, but because it's opaque, it's vinyl, it's fine. You can still very easily read what it says. I could have just made them all a little bit smaller, that's all. I know for next time, so you also know to not make my mistakes. And just like on the calendar spread that we just did, I'm making these into little gingerbread houses by giving them a pitched roof on the top and a little bit of space around the outside, and drawing with your white paint pen all the way around the outside of the box where you've put the brown down around the outside just really brings together the cookie look. I don't know why, but it just really solidifies it for me, so definitely do that. I'm giving each of these gingerbread houses a slightly different decoration, and then we're going to jump in with more stickers and of course our Cricut headings. This cat wrapped up in twinkle light sticker is from the Washi Tape Shop's Secret Santa washi tape sticker set, and I'm obsessed. They also have llamas and dogs and some other animals, but obviously the cats are my favorite because I am a cat girl. Just adding the headings on here, doing a little bit of weeding first of all to get all of those little sticky bits out that we don't need as part of the heading. And look at how easily they're going down because I've used this piece of transfer tape so many times by this point. It's starting to look a bit gross, but it really is working so much better than when it was fresh. I think I actually made my gingerbread houses a little bit too high here, so I'm jumping in with a washi tape. This one I got from the Papergang monthly stationery subscription box. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, I'm definitely using that for December. And this next page is my habit trackers. So I've lined the sides of the page with a little of that same washi tape. It kind of has a candy cane effect, even though it's copper and white and not red and white. I'm okay with that. I think it's still Christmassy. It goes great with my layout. And like I do almost every month, I'm using my Memo MO2 mini printer to print the calendars for my habit trackers. I made this calendar myself with Canva, and I have a link to this specific December one in the description in case you'd like to save it for yourself and use it with your own thermal mini printers. They make life setting up habit trackers so much easier, so I really recommend it. They do take up a fair bit of page space though, so you have to be a bit careful about how you decorate around them, but I just like to put something at the bottom and then I can stick right over the top because it's white paper that the sticker prints on anyway, so I find that works out really well for me. We've left just enough room at the top for my habit tracker header. I had originally thought it would be stacked, so it was habit on the top line and tracker on the bottom line, but I didn't leave myself enough space for that, so I've cut it into 2 stickers and I'm going to arrange them next to each other instead, which is the beauty of the flexibility of using Cricut headings rather than anything else. And once that's in place, we're going to move on to the next spread, which is my content planner. This is another calendar layout. I just find that makes the most sense for me as far as planning out where my content's going to go for Instagram and YouTube over the course of a month across 4 different social media accounts. And I use pretty much the same setup as the calendar that we did earlier, except instead of 5x5 spaces, these ones are 6x6, just to give me a bit more space to write in each day. I actually only started adding the content calendar back into my bullet journal in February of this year, which is so wild to think about because it's become a really integral part of my bullet journal pages for me every month. I really need this page, and I can't believe that I didn't use it for such a long time. Not turning my calendar into a cookie this time around, I'm just adding a row of red along the top so I can put my Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which I actually quite often forget when I'm doing my content planner, but I know where things fall. I always start my weeks on a Monday, so it doesn't matter. If I forget to label my Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, it's fine. There are links in the description to all of the washi tape stickers and pens and everything else that I'm using to set this up, so if you're interested in anything that you've seen me using in this video, jump into the description and you can get links to those. Some of them are affiliate links, so if you make a purchase through those, I will make a little bit of money. It doesn't cost you any extra, but it does help to support me, so it's totally up to you. But if you'd like to make a purchase with my links, I would be very flattered and glad. I'm bringing back my DIY gingerbread with the white vinyl on the bottom right corner here because it's just the right size to squeeze a little gingerbread man in there, weeding out the extras, using my grotty by now, but exactly the way I want it, transfer tape to get my gingerbread lady this time onto the page. This white paint pen is a godsend for this setup because it writes so beautifully over the top of darker colors and bright colors and is much more readable than I think a black fine liner would be over the top of these colors. So mad props to my white paint pen. It is the greatest and also great for fixing mistakes. My next two pages are for my spending log, which is where I keep track of all of the money that I spend. I do this the same way every time, so if you've seen this 100 times, I will understand if you don't want to watch it again. But I am going to turn it into an adorable cookie, so maybe you don't want to miss out on that. So I've got two tables exactly the same here, just because I find that works best. I can fit all of my spending information onto one page rather than two pages. You might notice the sun has come out. I'm so sorry if it bothers you, the light changes a little bit through the rest of the video. So this cookie setup here is kind of inspired by what we call in Australia a milk arrowroot biscuit. It's delicious. It doesn't actually have icing on it, but mine's going to, so I'm just drawing my box around the outside of both sides of the spending log and adding a little wave circle bubble pattern around the outside, and then I'm going to go over that just all the way around the outside of the cookie with some curved edges with my white paint pen, and that's almost it for this one. It ends up a very data heavy page, so I don't like to go too crazy on decoration for this one, so a bit of washi tape at the bottom to kind of keep everything looking cohesive. Of course, my heading at the top done with the Cricut, and that's about it for this one. Can I just say I'm so pumped to fill out this mood tracker. It took me a while to work out how to incorporate a mood tracker into this theme, and then it hit me like a ton of bricks because I'm so used to doing different colors to represent different moods on an illustration or something like that. And when it hit me, I was like, oh, of course, Erin, draw a bunch of gingerbread men and add decoration to them according to your mood. So that's what I'm doing. I'm getting in there with my brush pen. I've laid out space to do 31 little gingerbread men just by adding circles to the page, so I could kind of work out how big they needed to be. They're all different sizes, they're slightly differently oriented on the page, and I'm numbering each one. I should have numbered them after because I ended up having to squeeze a couple in above the mood tracker header that I didn't plan to have to put above the mood tracker header at the time. But I'm going to use my white paint pen to give them expressions and maybe clothes or some kind of decoration, and I think it's going to be really fun and adorable. The hardest part here was for sure planning out where they'd all go so that I could fit 31 of them on the page without any of them touching each other and without it looking out of balance. You need to have a similar number of gingerbread men above the mood tracker heading in the middle of the page as below. So I think it all came together pretty well in the end. It's not a plan with me video with me without a little cameo from Mitsu somewhere, so there's his tail. And here I'm just kind of demonstrating how I'll use the paint pen to add a little face to each of my gingerbread men for a different mood. I wanted some green on the page, so I've grabbed out my Tombow markers again, and I'm using the bullet end this time to add just a little bit of holly next to the mood tracker header. I didn't want to go too crazy. There wasn't room to put any stickers in there, so this is gonna have to do for decoration on this page. And we're on to the last spread. This is for my weekly. And I'm using a combination of stickers from a few of the different Christmas Washi Tape Shop sticker washi tape sets. Wow, that's a mouthful. To put together a little town down the bottom, and I'm going to use some other, not house stickers to go along the top, just to give this kind of almost lined effect. So I'm not using a straight washi tape, they're all stickers, but it sort of looks like I've used 2 rows of washi tape at the top and bottom. And I'm just going to add the names for each day of the week. In the red Tombow, I'm just working with the amount of space that the washi stickers left in the middle, working out where the halfway point of that is, and adding my second row of days down there. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on the left page, Friday, Saturday, Sunday and notes, not Monday, rather, on the right page. And I'm using the green marker again just to add a line under there to give everything a little bit more structure. I'm enjoying floating layouts a little bit lately, but this one I just thought needed something. Unfortunately, the dots in my journal don't completely line up, so it doesn't look as perfect as I'd like, but here is the final flip through. I'm so happy with this theme. I hope you've enjoyed planning with me and my Cricut Explore 3 for December 2022. I can't believe this is the last monthly layout for the year. Thank you so much for being with me, whether you're new to the channel recently or whether you've been with me from last year. I'm so glad that you're here. And I'm so excited to keep making bullet journaling and stationery content into 2023, and I hope that you'll join me for that as well. I post new videos every week, so hopefully I will see you in my next video next week. Until then, don't forget to give yourself some rest time this silly season. I know it can get crazy. Take care of yourself. Tag me in your bullet journal Cricut creations, and I can't wait to see you again next week. Happy journaling! Bye!